When the digging ended, the total was 27 murdered.
William Reese is the only suspect in the murders of Jessica Kane, Loris Miller, Kellyanne Cox, and Tiffany Johnston.
They got me set up like I'm a serial killer right now.
Tata is charged with 4 counts of manslaughter for this February 24th fire that killed 4 children.
Welcome back to the Evidence Room. This episode, we're going to be discussing the horrific fire involving Jessica Tata. This took place on February 24th, 2011. Tata, who operated a daycare, left a pan of oil cooking on the stove when she left. That started a fire that led to the deaths of 4 children and severely injured 3 other children. We will be talking about some of the evidence in that case, but we are primarily here today to speak to those who are dealing with the lasting effects of that horrific day, and that's going to be these gentlemen with the Houston Fire Department. Thank you all for joining us today. And I want to make a quick note. We have Captain Michael Prigmore with us, who is on shift, so if you hear a radio going off during this episode, that's because he has to monitor and may be called away at any minute. But gentlemen, thank you all for joining us.
How many were inside?
9 total. I pulled 2 out.
All right. All right. You got 9 total. 2 came out there. Ours coming through, she said. So 7 more inside.
I would like to first ask, and anyone who would like to can start, what was it like when you first arrived that day at the daycare? Can you describe the scene for us?
Alpha 3.
Well, me and Prigmore at the time, we arrived, I think, second after the first medic unit. So initially, we were unaware of how many kids there were. The scene was pretty stable. Captain Robinson and his crew was already there and inside at the time, attempting to pull the kids out. So it was not chaotic to start with, but it pretty soon got that way.
Because when you get there, you really don't necessarily know what you're dealing with all the time. You just see smoke coming out of the building.
Yeah, it was like a regular house fire. Make what, one of those per shift, seems like different sides of town.
We did get an update via the dispatch that there were kids inside.
That's got to change the whole complexion of everything.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I did drive a lot faster.
Alpha Bravo.
You drive fast all the time.
Yeah.
How, Disgusting, you went in, the fire had largely consumed the structure by the time I think even the first engine company had arrived, is that correct?
Definitely the origin, the kitchen area, and which was like right where the playroom was, and then there was a window in that little playroom. That part was pretty tore up.
I don't know. I don't want to lie. I don't know. Have mercy. What happened? There was a fire. Where? How? Kitchen. I came out. All I did was pee. I came out. There was black everywhere, but I went straight for the kids. I couldn't see anything. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do.
There was high tension, of course, once we got to the front door, and I spoke with Miss Tata, and we asked, to confirm, is everybody out? And so, based on her answer, then we got information of the urgency that needed to be, that was pressing to get inside to locate the 4 children. So, looking back now, we hit it pretty fast. That was what we were supposed to do, but it felt like a lifetime. When you're pushing through a room, you can't see, but you have to understand, like, hey, the goal is to get them out alive, the victims. So it was smoky, visibility was poor. We were fully encapsulated with protective gear. So we made the search, and We went to, I believe it was the Charlie side, myself and the senior, well, he's a retired chief now, but we had to pass the children out of the window because we couldn't go back the way we came because it was very hot and smoky and the children didn't have protective gear like we do. So we had to go out, it was a single story home. And so we had to go out of the window on the Charlie side. So that's just kind of a condensed version of what happened that day. There's other things that, like, take for example, a lot of things that people don't know that I rarely talk about is what happened that day. So I was in the watch office at Fire Station 75, and there is the MDT of all the runs that come over the station. So I was on the phone speaking with a friend of mine who's retired, and when the dispatch dropped, it said, daycare center on fire, report of people trapped. So that seemed, I would say, that's one of the ones that really bother you, and you're hoping it's not true when you get there, right? So it's almost like one of those nightmarish scenarios that come true that you don't want to. So en route, there was no shortage of help and urgency because any available ambulance supervisor or transport unit wanted to be added to that run record based on the continuous updates prior to arrival. So I knew then that was probably going to be something pretty catastrophic. So
I know this is what you're trained for and this is your career, but I still cannot imagine the feeling of essentially parting the smoke and seeing children everywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely a feeling in your gut, that you get, that you want to do your best work that day. It was pretty good, Rich.
And I understand some of the children had to be some of the children were resuscitated, correct?
All the kids had to be resuscitated with the exception of 2. The first 2 were found in the backyard prior to 75's getting there. The medic 75 transported those first 2 kids. Every other kid that came out, myself and Captain Prickmore here put our hands on.
The first victim that came out that was actually involved in the fire, I ran to the door because I knew, heard on the radio coming out. And I met him, and then he handed it off to me, and then he went right back to go get more. And so I had mine, and it was like, she was hot to the touch. It was like potato, like out of the oven, fresh. It was like skin sloughed off, everything. And so we went to work, and like your mind, just like, you're like kind of an out-of-body experience. I mean, we're trained to do it, but you rely on the training at that point. Like I knew what I needed to do to get what I needed to get done. But the human part, like I was crying, it was like, I looked up and he was, doing CPR on one and another guy was just like, it's like dropped me in the middle of the twilight zone, But, and mine started breathing after a while, so I knew we had a good shot with mine.
She calls me a miracle. She says I'm a miracle baby and I'm a survivor. I remember that I was in a daycare fire and it was nap time, but everybody was in a fire. They were trying to escape, the kids, but me and my brother, we couldn't escape, so he just got on top of me, protecting me, and he was a really good hero.
You could tell this based on the kids, how close they were. There's one of the kids, which was the first patient's brother. You can tell he tried to go in there and cut it off. So he had the most injuries.
So he tried to turn the stove off?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Or pull it off.
Pull it off, 1 or 2. I think he was 4 years old.
And one of the other children tried to shield their sibling, didn't they?
That was him.
That was him too? I don't understand. I don't know how you cope with that. I really don't.
You can't unsee it,
Can you tell me, what is that? Do you feel my touch? What's the sensitivity like?
It's like touching rubber. Like
Right.
my leg is a whole rubber toy.
So this, the back of her knee was really, really tight.
Right.
But this is a really thin, very delicate area. So instead of cutting right here, they're cutting above and below, which is slowly undoing the tightness here.
As awful as that is, does it add an extra layer when you find out that that became a criminal case?
Yes, ironically, for some reason, I guess just focusing, I never noticed the daycare truck there. When I spoke with her, we're taught, because like I said, I had no idea it was a daycare. We just knew we had kids in there. And she walked up crying, and they kept, telling her to get out the way. And I said, no, leave her alone. Because I thought they were kids. And, that usually helps to see that, we're working. And after we transported everyone else off, she complained of chest pain, so they had another unit for her. And like I said, ironically, nobody, we didn't send not one officer to the hospital with her. Nobody, we didn't think it was a criminal. We thought it was just an accident. So yeah, once everything else came out, it made sense. It was still shocking.
It's gotta hurt though. I just got angry when I found out how it happened. I just got angry. I just mad as hell.
We have a lot more to talk about, and we will continue speaking with these firefighters right after our break.
The woman who runs the daycare, Jessica Tada, also had to be taken by ambulance. Investigators say she's so upset about the fire, they wanted doctors to make sure she's okay.
Do you wish to give us a statement today?
I promise you I'm still in shock. I don't remember anything.
Okay. All right. Well, do you wish to make a statement at this time?
I don't remember anything.
Okay. You don't remember anything about what happened today?
I don't remember anything.
I know none of you are arson investigators, but you are aware, it takes a long time to investigate a fire, especially one that's that destructive. Did you find yourselves waiting quite a bit, like wanting to know what really happened? Or did you even think about it? Or did you just kind of assume it started in the kitchen?
I wanted to gather as much, data for me, because at some point we were going down to UTMB to see Michaela and her recovery, and she was my patient. And then how everything else played out, the criminal trial, and they were intensely watching it, just like everybody else. Hoping for a good outcome. No matter what the outcome, criminal-wise, it wasn't going to really.
I never got to say goodbye. She took that from me. I didn't even get to see his body. I never got to see my little boys.
Almost 1 month after a daycare fire left 4 small children dead and 3 others injured, the wounds from the tragedy are still raw. Tiffany Dickerson's son Shamari died in the fire. Her daughter Michaela suffered from burns and is back home recovering. While the pain continues, she's ready to face the woman who's being blamed for the death of her little boy.
I want her to sit there on that stand, look at me in my face and tell me that she left my kids alone in the house to go to Target.
As Kenya Stratford was picking out a headstone for her little girl's grave, a sense of relief with the news of the surrender.
I'm just glad she finally did it. We've been praying about it.
As these families wait to face the woman whom they trusted with their kids' lives, Tata sits in custody in Nigeria, waiting to be brought back here to face the charges.
Wait, you said you got angry. I remember when she took off to Nigeria. The marshals had to go get her. I got to imagine there was a moment of also concerned that, oh God, is she going to come back and face this?
That was frustrating.
Yeah, when they were on down the road, when the news reports started coming out, they was, are they going to be able to get her back here? Yeah. And I remember I got to the scene, pretty much most of the kids were already gone. I can confirm that they made a pretty quick rescue. They did a great job getting those kids out of there and, she had them back to the hospital. But then I was like, well, where'd they go? And I think 3 of them went to Herman, if I remember right, that were burned, and 2 went to West Houston. And so back in those days, there's a drug called cyanokit. Now pretty much all the units have it, but at that time, the only people that carried them were the EMS supervisors and 1 on each district chief car. And the reason for that was the cost of the drug was very high, and they had a certain shelf life, so not all the units had it. So I had one because I was an EMS supervisor, but I remember when I found out that 2 of the kids went to West Houston, I went and gathered the cyano kits out of the chief's cars and then shagged Bud over to West Houston because the hospitals didn't even carry that.
Hey guys, go inside. Same order you were yesterday.
This is home video shot by Jessica Tata the morning that 4 children died in a fire at her home daycare. These are the children prosecutors say she left alone. The defense showed this to the jury, saying it proves Tata loved the children in her care. The second piece of video shows Tata shopping at a nearby Walmart. This was less than half an hour after all the kids were dropped off at her home. A Walmart employee told the jury she took her time.
She was in the building for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and she was in no hurry to leave the building at all.
She didn't tell us directly that she went to the grocery store, but we could see like grocery bags and like drinks right there at the front of the door.
One of the things that came out pretty quickly leading up to the trial is that she was not there when that fire had started, and I think the fire department even ran basically scientific tests showing how quickly that oil on the stove can go. I go back to this because it's the burden that you all have to carry. How does information like that, how do you deal with information like that? Because you've seen what you've seen, and now you're hearing that she was shopping when it started, she had left oil cooking on the stove, all of that.
Well, it's best to debrief. We have, like Captain Greenberg said, we have critical incident stress management teams that, you go in, you talk, and you vent. You got to have a release or a vent to help you deal with that type of stress and the information and stuff that you get. Because it's not, let's face it, it's not much that we can do after we found out after, what happened. But we all have, a mechanism or somebody we can talk to in order to get that information, vent that information out. So.
Did you? And it's not like it's not like a day or a couple day thing. This goes on for quite a while, especially when it comes to investigations and criminal trials. And then you hear things come out that she had prior incidents dealing with fire, like she wanted to make a principal angry, she had threatened another young lady with matches, and all this comes out. How important was it to you to have that avenue to vent, and how often did you have to vent?
For me, I had Dr. Buser on speed dial. It was paramount. He kind of puts you back together, because you feel like, you're almost crazy, these thoughts or the dreams or the smells that keep recurring, the things that would just normally happen, It's like this, you're not crazy for having these things, It's like, oh, okay, So going back and having that avenue, talking about it helped out a lot.
All right. You're part of the peer
support.
Yes, peer support groups. Talk about how important it was, especially after something like that, to have these peer support groups in place.
Well, it's important. When you start out, you're talking about it with the people that were there. And so as everybody starts talking about it, it gives you the realization that you're not alone in these feelings. He's getting pretty emotional. I can see I get a little emotional talking about it, right? But I think one thing that's important is that you're normal. You're dealing with it just like everybody else would deal with it. This is a normal way to respond to extremely abnormal situations and abnormal incidents. And getting that confirmation from the other people that were there, I think is really important. Think about the number of people that were at that incident. You probably have the numbers, but 3-alarm fire, probably 150 people, if not more,
At least.
you know, that were exposed to that trauma. We had one psychologist to try and manage these people, and it doesn't happen.
I was more upset that the kid that I had that couldn't save. So yeah, that's emotional. Then, you know, everything else that happened, you know. So you have to have somebody to vent to, and some, like I said, peers. It's just having somebody to talk to get that emotion out, and then understand that it's okay. You're supposed to have those type of emotions, because at the end of the day, you know, I think that call was at 5:30. Me and Captain Prigmore had to go back to work. We had more calls to make.
Yeah, you don't get to, it's not like you get a chance to catch your breath.
I would say, unfortunately, and when I say unfortunately, because I had to relive that moment, I was one of the 4 rank for rank individuals that was chosen to testify against Ms. Tata in court. So they wanted a representative from each rank, and along with the individual who had first contact with her. So I had to, you know, basically go over the fire record and make sure that I had clarity on every minor detail, that in case I was cross-examined, in which I was by the defense. So it was pretty surreal and visceral, I would say, and I have no reservations in admitting that I had sought out counseling on my own through a private counseling, because it's like Captain Greenberg said, you know, departments, we're a large department. So since that time, it's a daily process, and it's something you never forget. You don't forget anything like that, you know.
The issue of mental health is a massive subject, so we're going to continue having this conversation with these firefighters right after the break.
This sister and grandmother stopped by the home to try to find answers. They want to see it for themselves and find out how their little angel, 20-month-old Kendall Stratford, was killed while at her daycare.
Yes, I'm the grandmama, and I wanted some closure. I wanted to see.
They were overcome by sadness and couldn't say much, but 20-month-old Elizabeth Kajo's parents told us they are living a horrible nightmare.
I couldn't just imagine. I mean, this is the girl that I held this morning, and only to identify her now as a corpse, it was difficult.
With some speculation about who was in the house and what happened at the time of the fire, this woman says Jessica is a great daycare provider.
The kids were always clean. They were always fed. So if this ever started in the kitchen, she was cooking for them. This woman does it.
She didn't want to be identified, but she said her 5-year-old grandson did not go to the daycare yesterday, and she's counting her blessings he is safe.
I feel that. I feel that. But on the other hand, I feel it for her too, because I know that this wasn't something that she did out of negligence.
Neighbors and strangers could not help but showing their sorrow and support for the children and their families.
And I was just moved to want to do something. I immediately stopped everything and we said a prayer for everyone involved.
Can't see the forest through the trees, right? But afterwards, if things start to slow down and you look back at the way you were reacting to things then and where I am now, and it's not like I had a lot of therapy or anything between. I'm just finally having a chance to decompress.
After how many years with the department?
I've been retired now for 6 years.
Well, it's like anything else. I mean, if you're left to your own thoughts, is that worse?
I'm not even going to say that if you're, but chime in if you need to, you know. It's not so much if you're isolated or alone, it's if you haven't like gone through anything to deal with some of these things, because eventually you just run out of shelf space. You know, as an officer now, I look for that in my guys, you know, young guys, 7-year guys, got little kids, making kids, you know, it's hard. It's for everybody, but, you know, once you've done it enough, you know, you're able to see guys that are exhibiting those problematic symptoms, because there's a waiting list for our one doc that we can send them to. So we kind of have to be our own keeper.
From previous suicides or depression, things that have gone on with other guys in the department, they start off mostly by joking. okay? We make jokes about our calls, or we'll make a joke about doing things to ourselves, and we all laugh it off until it happens. So you have to look for those signs if they're something out of the ordinary that they normally don't do. And like I said, it usually starts with making light of the situation of what happened, or they'll talk about actually doing it. And when you get to the point of they have an actual plan, then yeah, there's a problem.
Do you find a lot of times first responders will actually vocalize it to that?
You have to recognize and ask.
You have to kind of see it underneath, because like they'll just be gone like 2 months from now. You were laughing with them on shift, making calls one day, and then 2 months later, and then you find out they had this whole played out, situation they were dealing with, in addition to making calls.
Well, I think that's important to note too. It can happen that quickly.
Yes.
It's weird. I think when it happens, they've probably been thinking about it for a while, and then something just happens and they do it. I think the substance issues that you alluded to earlier is huge. I know I've talked to, when I was active and I was a captain, I tried to do it, and actually I had one firefighter come back to me afterwards and said if I hadn't pulled him in the office and talked to him, it would have been over that night. Now I do some of the peer support at the Union Hall, but what I do mostly is deal with discipline issues and grievances. And what I found in that position is a lot of these discipline issues have their roots in mental health and behavioral health. They're having some other issues. Not necessarily just the fire department, but you had the fire department, and then you had the stuff at home, right? And a lot of stuff at home is caused because of things that happen at the fire department, because they don't know how to deal with what they dealt with at the fire department, and then come home and kick the dog, for lack of a better word, right?
No, but I would say people, and I've said this too, people can't live two lives forever. And I'm talking about your work life and your home life. Eventually, one's going to start affecting the other.
They do affect it, and some of the things that I've seen, I don't want my son to have those images. I don't want my wife to have those images. They'll never understand anyways, but now I've just taken my traumas and put it on them. I don't want to do that to somebody I care about.
And just so you know, Captain Prigmore had to go out on an emergency call. Back to what we were talking about, you gentlemen are still active duty. What do you do now in your daily lives? Because certainly the fire at Jessica Tata's daycare is not the only horrific thing you have seen over a very long career. So what do you do now from day to day, week to week, to try to manage that trauma?
Well, some of it for myself was I always take everything that I do, and it becomes experience. So at a while, myself and Captain Greenberg, we taught paramedics and EMTs, and we take those real life situations and we teach it to them on, as to what can happen and really happens in this job. So that was one way for me to get it out, was I'm talking to them. They don't know that they're my sounding board, but I'm teaching them what you should do and what could possibly happen on this job. My second outlet, of course, is still my father. And ironically, as Captain Greenberg says, PTSD is real, and he tells me that all the time, because every call that he's made over that 47-year career that he had, all those calls come back to him. And that first year of his retirement, he was up walking the floor till 3 in the morning because those calls were bothering him. So it's real, and you need to, need counseling to help with that. And I'm fortunate enough, like I said, he's my sounding board, also still my disciplinarian when I say stuff on the phone. So,
speaking from personal experience, internalizing everything it's like a ticking. It's a problem. Long term, it is. So I think for me personally, was to get over that stigmatism of having an open dialogue with a professional that specializes in helping you decompress with this. Because not to patronize anyone's choices, but it makes sense. Some people have the church, or they have their pastor or their family. With me, at the time when the fire occurred, my daughter was 2, so that really hit like a spear to my chest that day. So I
gotta imagine you're seeing your daughter's face.
Yeah, and so that's I took it personal. Like you take that personal, and the instant thing you think of is, hey, everyone had that human reaction, that primal reaction. Are my kids safe? You didn't even think about it. And I recollect looking in the front. We were in the front yard once the fire was out. Overhaul was being performed. We were done. People were on their cell phones calling their families. And I don't think they realized they were doing that, but I did it too. And that just goes to show you how powerful that day was, of the impact it has on you as an individual, and how it affects indirectly your loved ones at home, and they may not even know what's going on. Again, my daughter was 2. She had no idea. But the most important thing, I think, is with the newer firefighters that are here in the Houston Fire Department, I think that not being, I guess, what's the right word to say? Not being given a bunch of flack for expressing how you feel. You know what I mean? Like being
not having that worry.
Yeah, it's like that. Just being able to just say, hey, look, I feel some type of way about that.
And it's like I talked about before. It's insidious, right? It's the cumulative effect. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and you don't even realize that it's happened to you until you've reached a crisis. And then you got a problem. But you still might not put it together as to why am I like this.
How do you broach that? Are you considering hurting yourself or killing yourself?
Well, I think first of all is you have to recognize or pay attention, to the signs, because it's usually when they're venting to you, it's usually somebody that's close to you. It's a friend, and he's comfortable venting to you. Or joking with somebody that you joke with, as a coworker. But you have to pay attention to when they start to say the same things over and over again, repetitiously. So, and at that point, we have avenues. They have different phone numbers that we can call to ask to get that advice on how to approach this particular individual. Whether you go through your captain at the station or the critical incident stress management personnel that we have on duty, but you have to say something and get somebody to ask. The point is to acknowledge and to ask, because as we said, you don't want to go, we heard that and we just didn't think, that he was serious.
What they'll do, they'll joke about it, right? I think I'm just gonna go home and blow my head off tonight. They'll say it in a joking manner, but if you put it in context as to, I've noticed some behavior changes, he's upset, he's going through
Drinking a lot,
he's drinking a lot, and then he makes that comment like he's joking. That's when I'm gonna ask the question.
Or angry.
Are you really thinking about killing yourself? Because he's already told me what his plan is. And then I'm smart enough to know when I'm in over my head. I'm smart enough to know when I need somebody smarter to help deal with those problems, and then I'll get them to the staff psychologist or to somebody who's smarter than me on dealing with those issues.
Is also too, I mean, you talk about telling firefighters to rethink how they approach this and say it's okay to not be okay. I would think there's also a little bit of a learning curve on telling first responders it's okay to ask somebody you're worried about, are you thinking about doing this? I would think it's the other side of the same coin.
That was one of the main points of the suicide prevention program, was teaching other firefighters how to recognize it and how to just ask that question. A lot of people are afraid to ask the question, right? Oh, I don't want to put the idea in their head if it's not in their head already. If it's in their head already, then it's already in their head, and you're not going to give them the idea of killing themselves. That people that are smarter than me in this field tell me that's not a concern, that you should just ask directly.
Firemen, we joke a lot. We're family, so we play a lot. So you have to pay attention when the person that's talking to you doesn't play like that. You know, that's not his norm. Or something in his mental status changes, his demeanor. Like I said, he becomes angry, or he's been drinking a lot more, you know, and he's starting to complain about things at the house or things. And then it takes that one call. And yeah, well, like Captain says, I'm getting off from work, had a long night. I'm gonna just blow my head off. You know, yeah, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Then you don't see him anymore.
There's a lot more to this conversation. When we come back from break, we're going to be talking with the president of the Houston Professional Firefighters Association, Marty Langton. He's going to be telling us about the resources that are available to first responders and what support is still needed.
You have to embrace the fire part of you, because whether you like it or not, it's going to be who you are. And don't let other people stop you from believing, because you're beautiful just the way you are.
And joining us now is president of the Houston Professional Firefighters Association, Marty Langton. Marty, I appreciate you coming here. What is available to help first responders who have to deal with such god-awful circumstances?
You know, when we talk about the trauma that firefighters have to deal with, we always say that firefighters respond to the citizens that they serve on their worst day. And that means they see things that the normal public does not. And so the increased rates of PTSD, behavioral substance abuse, it's a real thing in the U.S. Fire Service. Not only is our International Association of Firefighters recognized that, but Houston being the third largest municipal fire department in the nation, the Houston Professional Firefighters Association have dedicated a tremendous amount of resources to ensure that our members know that it's okay to say you're not okay. We have our own Local 341 IFF peer support team that is available 24/7 to our members if they need it. There are some programs that the city has, but the most important thing that we've seen when we're dealing with firefighters and paramedics that are in crisis, that are dealing with these emotional issues from things that they've seen, from people that they've lost, is we have an IAFF Center of Excellence, a behavioral health Center of Excellence program. And it's based up north, and we just put that in effect a few years back. We have treated over 2,600 International Association of Firefighters, firefighter and paramedics from the US and Canada, so that we can get them the help that they need. In fact, we are now, we have already broke ground, or we're about to break ground on a second facility. Why? Because our greatest asset within the fire department is the men and women that are go out there and put their lives on the line. And when they need us the most is when they can't help themselves. Firefighters and paramedics always try to help others.
One of the things we've been talking about is the public has this expectation. We dial 911, you come to save us, but then the public doesn't think about what that firefighter, what that paramedic, what that police officer has to deal with emotionally after absorbing all of that trauma. How important is it to get the word out to firefighters, as you say, to say I'm not okay?
You know, it is absolutely the most critical thing. When the alarm goes off, when you've been doing this job for long enough, you can think about all of the calls that have impacted you, whether you think it affects you. If you really stop to think about it, a lot of times it changes the way we act. Maybe not long term, but maybe short term. But just as in a fire like this, where you're talking about children, children are especially vulnerable. And so for Houston firefighters and paramedics to see a child hurt, to see a child that is struggling is, I don't think there's anything greater than you'll see a firefighter and paramedic move faster and move mountains to get there. So they don't think about what the consequences are afterwards. What they think is there's a life in danger, and I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to go save that person. And when the aftermath of those calls manifest themselves years later, I think if you polled most firefighters and paramedics, they can recall specific incidents throughout their career that stick with them. They don't show up to work, Robert, and think to themselves, today is going to be the day that I'm going to have to go rush in to a daycare that's on fire to save children. Nobody should have a child that loses their life because of that.
How hard was it to change the mindset of first responders who did start out in that era where you didn't talk about things, you just kind of dealt with it?
It's very difficult. And I don't think it's difficult because that's not what they want. I think it's the groupthink mentality that if I say that I need help, somehow I look less than the other, my partner does. And that's just not the case. You can't catch somebody when it's too late. The point is to ensure we have the services available. And we've dedicated a tremendous amount of resources to ensure that if they need something, we're going to do everything possible to make sure that they get it, no questions asked. Because if we're not taking care of them, what are we doing?
Yeah, because people don't think about it. I mean, you go to this one god-awful scene and it's horrible. It's not like you get to go and decompress and catch your breath. It's very possible that 5 minutes after you finish that horrific scene, you have to go to another horrific scene as well.
I tell people all the time, I said, you know, Houston firefighters and paramedics are unique, and all firefighters and paramedics are unique in this nature. They're expected to go out there, be 100% right, 100% of the time, anywhere from 15 to 25 times a shift, and go respond to somebody on their worst day, pack up, go back to the station, and pretend like nothing happened. It's very, very difficult to process these things. And so outreach and ensuring that there's a consistent message that it's okay is what changes a culture. I've always been asked, they say, how do you think you can change a culture? I said, be consistent. If you're there when they need it the most, that's what's going to show them that it's worth it.
Now, witnesses on scene say firefighters turned in a heroic effort to save these children.
They tried to help him as far as I saw, and then they took him out on the ambulance.
Those 7 kids, did they appear okay? Were they working on them?
They were all working on him as hard as they could.
In terms of Tata, this became a criminal case, and so it stayed in the public eye for a long period of time. We're coming up on 11 years since this happened. How did you see it impacting those who responded that day? Because it didn't end that day. It kept going for quite a while.
I think it's still going on. I think that from not only the men and women that I've spoken to since 2011 that were there, that would have been something I responded to at the station that I was assigned to at the time. It wasn't my shift, but I can recall years after this, the conversations from the men and women, and we talk about things at the kitchen table at the firehouse. I don't think there was a time that we haven't gone back to discuss some aspect of it because it's affected them. And that's the point. You have to allow the opportunity for those that were impacted, that those that went without knowing what they were getting into, the opportunity to talk, the opportunity to share, because it's not about pushing something down anyone's throat. It's about the ability in which them to know that we're all in this together. And if we do things for each other the right way, then we're going to get through it together.
In part of Proactive too, I would think you would have to, there's somewhat of a learning curve in terms of that may not hit you.
Correct.
That day. It may not hit you, it may not even hit you next year, but it may hit you at some point. So I would think that proactivity would be very important.
It is, and it's not an exact science. Clearly, I'm not a doctor, but what I can say is that, we formed our peer support team. And one of the things that's most critical is that things that manifest themselves or don't manifest themselves today may manifest themselves tomorrow. And so the ability to know that people are here, resources are available, confidentiality is key. I can tell you that the Behavioral Health Center, the Center of Excellence that the IFF has stood up, has been something that has been life-saving for our men and women and life-saving for Houston firefighters and paramedics that have gone there. We can't sit by anymore and pretend like the impact that this has on the men and women of the fire department doesn't affect them. I'm not willing to lose another firefighter. I'm not willing to lose another brother and sister. And so we have to stay on it, and we have to be there when they call 911.
For family members of first responders who may watch this, what are some of the signs that they can potentially pick up on that somebody may be in trouble?
We feel a little bit closer to our family at the fire station, and we don't always want to take that home to our family. And the way that manifests itself is that you become closed off. You become a little bit quicker to be angry, more difficult communicating, because families want to understand what their spouse has gone through. The problem is the firefighters and paramedics don't always know the right way to communicate with somebody that would never understand what they have seen. When the family notices something, there are resources available. We've had multiple spouses call up to our office and said, I don't know what to do. We immediately start assessing the situation, and we have our peer support members that formulate a plan and get a needs assessment done, and we figure out what next steps are. Is it an immediate problem? Is it a long-term problem? What actions do we need to take? Because if I'm being honest, the amount of firefighters in Houston and paramedics that have been in crisis, it's a lot. The reality, though, is that those are the ones that we know of, and we were able to help. What about the ones that haven't spoken up yet? And we hope that the city implements more things to help, but we work with very closely the clinicians, and there is a Houston Fire Department staff psychologist that we work very closely. Our peer support team and the resources we have works in conjunction with the staff psychologist. But again, those relationships have to be formed. If you don't know somebody, it's a lot more difficult for firefighters and paramedics to actually discuss their issues with people they don't know.
Yeah, because if they have trouble discussing it with their own family, it would be very difficult to talk about it with somebody they don't know.
Right. I mean, I think that the men and women that were there, I think their experiences are going to speak for themselves, but I can tell you that it is not something that you can forget. You could do the best thing, you could do everything right, Robert, and the outcome cannot be good. And that's where the difference between the mindset of firefighters and paramedics and the general public is, in my opinion, which is you can analyze whether something was a positive or a negative result based on the outcome. You could have done everything right, but somebody didn't make it. And that is a difficult thing for firefighters.
The issue of mental health support for first responders in all their different capacities is a subject we're going to keep working on because it goes well beyond the fire involving Jessica Tata, and it goes well beyond this episode. In the interim, if you would like more information, please go to our website, click2houston.com. And we will also be back next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. with another episode of The Evidence Room, streaming on our KPRC 2 Plus app. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Kingwood Queens, 4 teenage girls who went on an armed robbery spree.